Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is QiJun, and I'm the EST for Value Delivery. Hello, 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 hello. Okay. So again, my name is QiJun, and I'm the EST for Value Delivery, as well as LCVP of IGV in LC UNMC. So today, welcome everyone to the education space for Value Delivery. And today, we'll talk more about value delivery, specifically 16 standards, and how do we implement and track 16 standards through a new tool called value delivery tool. So before we start into more technical part, imagine you're a customer, and which means you're an EP preparing to go for global volunteer, and this is your how you feel before you go for global volunteer, your excitement. So I can't wait to reach Malaysia to create an impact there. My money and time spent are definitely worth it. So this could be what EPs usually thought, like when before they go for global volunteer, they will feel excited and they can't wait. They will look forward towards many, many things. And what if after 6 weeks, this becomes how they feel, like they feel angry, they feel disappointed because they do not actually receive what we have promised them. So this would be maybe one of their thought, which is everything I've gotten was not based on what they have promised, and I feel like I've wasted my entire summer on making friends only. So this actually shows how disappointed, and also shows the anger of maybe the EP who did not receive services or anything that they should actually receive based on what we have promised them before they arrive. So this GIF here shows exactly how disappointed they will be after, like, they might be expecting a lot of things, but after 6 weeks, throughout the 6 weeks, what we have provided is not up to what they expected. So to actually avoid this to happen, we have something called 16 standards. And what 16 standard is, we'll go back to the big picture of Isaac Way. So specifically on Isaac What, we develop leadership through practical experiences in challenging environment. And we do this through cross-cultural exchange, which is through our product. And now we are talking about global volunteer. So as an Isaacer, which is all of us here, no matter you're from OGV or IGV, meaning OGV the sending entity, IGV the host entity, no matter which entity you are from, we are all actually responsible to actually deliver 16 standards so that inner and outer journey can happen, which is here. And after that, after we deliver 16 standards and inner and outer journey happens, we are able to develop leadership qualities in our customers or our EPs. So today we'll be focusing on 16 standards. So going back to 16 standards. So what 16 standards are? 16 standards are basically categorized into 4 categories, namely development, logistics, job, and living. So what is 16 standards? It's a basic guideline, keyword basic guidelines for ISACers for both IGV or OGV, hosting entity or sending entity. Um, for us, it's a basic guideline for us to follow in order to provide a complete experience to our EPs. So why is it basic? Meaning that it's a bare minimum that we should actually fulfill, and we cannot do lesser than that. We can only do more than that. And it's like a checklist for us to actually know which one should we actually fulfill before realization, during realization, and also after realization. So again, the purpose of having 16 standards is to provide a complete experience to our EPs. And out of all the 16 standards, only 4 have to be fulfilled by the sending entity, which is the OGV side. and the remaining 12 will have to be fulfilled by the host entity, which is IGV. But regardless of how many standards we should fulfill, both entities have to ensure that each of us do fulfill all 16 standards. Meaning that if I'm from IGV, I have to ensure that OGV from the other country, if for example from Vietnam, fulfill all 4 standards here, which is personal goal setting, outgoing preparation, debrief with Isaac home, as well as insurance. So after this, I'll go um, into detail, like what are these 16 standards and how do we actually fulfill each of them. So, so this is the checklist, the entire checklist of 16 standards. So we will go one by one from one category to another. So firstly, from development, the first one is personal goal setting, which has to be fulfilled by the home entity or the sending entity, which means OGV. So what they have to do is before EPs actually depart from their country to come to Malaysia, they have to make sure that they provide a proper space for EPs to actually set personal goals based on their leadership development assessment results, which means before we get EPs approved, EPs will have to complete their LDA tests on XPA. And from there, the OGV side, they can actually know their results and also help EPs to actually plan their goals based on it. Like for example, if their score is very low on self-aware, so they will help EPs or they will plan the goals together with the EPs in order to actually improve their self-aware. So after that, to know whether we fulfill it or not, after the entire 6 weeks, EPs will have to actually fill up a 16 standard survey on XPA. And this is a question that will be asked. So they will ask, did you set personal goals at the beginning of your experience? So if OGV side, if they fulfill this standard, EPs will tick yes. And that's how we measure how much have we done. That's how we measure what are the standards that we have fulfilled. So same goes to all other standards. There will be a specific question asked on XPA. And next, after personal goal setting, it's outgoing preparation. And similarly, it's fulfilled by home entity, which is OGV. So what it means is that the home entity or the OGV site will have to offer or conduct an outgoing preparation seminar, which is also, we call it OPS. And before EPs, before EP leaves to maybe comes to Malaysia, they have to attend OPS. And the reason of having OPS is actually to equip the EPs with the knowledge needed. For example, what is Isaac and what's Isaac way, and then set some expectations on what will they actually face throughout the 6 weeks to actually prepare EPs before they depart to Malaysia, depart from their country to Malaysia. So on XPA, the question that will be asked is, did Isaac in home entity, which means if it's from Vietnam, maybe Isaac in FTO Hanoi. So the question is, did Isaac in FTO Hanoi invite you to a preparation seminar before you went abroad? So if the OGV side fulfill this standard, then it will be a yes. And next is expectation setting. And expectation setting is fulfilled by host entity, which means IGV, which is us. And what we have to do is before EPs depart from the country or come for global volunteer, we have to make sure that EPs are all equipped with um, knowledge needed before they come here. For example, they need to know like how's the culture or the political situation, the safety, the living standards, and then the accommodation. How is it like in Malaysia to actually prepare them before they come, so they don't set the wrong expectations and they have the right mindset to come here. So the question that will be asked is, did Isaac in the host entity, for example, Isaac in UPM, did Isaac in UPM provide you with the materials or prepare you for the destination you were headed? So our job here is to prepare and to give them whatever information they need. So that's expectation setting. And up next, it's in incoming preparation. So incoming preparation is similar to outgoing preparation, just that outgoing preparation is by OGV and incoming preparation is by IGV. So when EPs first arrive in Malaysia, within the first week, we normally will have incoming preparation seminar for our EPs to actually the same thing to prepare them before they officially start working. So what we will do is that we will have maybe follow up with the personal goals set by them when back in their home country with together with their OGV. So we'll follow up on their personal goals and also maybe plan way forward on that and prepare them in terms of the culture in Malaysia maybe and then how is working in the project like or introducing the project. So this can be different according to what each LC have planned. And so how will it be measured? The same thing, the question is, did Isaac in the host entity invite you to a preparation seminar once you arrive? So this is if the host entity fulfill this standard, so EP will also tick yes on next part. Okay, moving on, development spaces with OP provider. OP means opportunity, so development spaces with opportunity provider. So the host entity, which is the IGV site, will have to ensure that opportunity provider provides at least one space or any job description that is aligned to their personal goals. And opportunity provider here means like, for example, for NCR projects, you have your NGOs, and these NGOs are the opportunity provider because they provide these opportunities to these EPs. And yeah, so for PBOX projects could be the high schools that EPs go for workshops. And how do we align is that the OCs here, you have to make sure that the job description that the EPs actually have is aligned to what they want to achieve. So this is what it means by development spaces with OP provider. And the question asked is, did the OP provider or stakeholder provide you a space to align your job description with personal goals at the beginning and end of your experience? So at least one space. Yeah. And the last one for under development is debrief with Isaac Home, done by home entity, which is the OGV site. So after 6 weeks of exchange, when EPs go back to their own country, the home entity or the OGV site will have to offer a debrief for them to actually sum up or wrap up the entire experience to have a proper closing for after the 6 weeks of exchange. So the question asked is, did Isaac and the home entity contact you at the end of the experience? So no matter what in what form the OGV conduct the debrief, they must at least contact them after they finish the experience. So that's all for development. And moving on, we'll go to logistics. And under logistics, the first one is visa and work permit. So for visa and work permit, what IGV has to do is that we have to make sure that we send all the documents required for the EPs to actually apply for visa or work permit. So what we want to achieve is that EPs is able to legally enter Malaysia as well as legally stay in Malaysia for 6 weeks to actually perform what they want to perform, like for example, to join our project, so, and which means that, for example, we provide invitation letter for EPs so that they can use this maybe in the invitation letter for their visa or when they want to enter our country. And then also supporting letter for a visa application. So all these documents. So the question here is that, do you get documents required to get your visa or work permit? So this question will be directed to EPs, and if we do provide all these documents, then that's a yes. And next, it's arrival pickup. So how do we fulfill this standard is that before EPs depart from the country, meaning maybe after approval, our our responsibility is to actually send all the information they need on how to maybe get to the airport, and then from there, what are details, how do we actually fetch them, when do we fetch them, where do we meet them, or if they're not picking them up from the airport, how do they go to the place that we are actually picking up them. So what we have to do is just to provide all this information and make sure that we do pick them up and it's not anyone else. So this is how we fulfill arrival pickup. So it's not encouraged that, I mean, it's not a must that we have to pick that up instead of they coming to our own university. So the question here is, was the pickup arrangement communicated before arrival and fulfilled? So meaning before arrival, we have to communicate with them, telling them all this information, as well as fulfilling our promises, which means we have to pick them up. So yeah. And up next is departure support. For departure support, it depends on your LC, like how do you actually arrange. So normally for departure support, since it's just support, we do not actually send the EPs to airport because they have been in Malaysia for 6 weeks. So they should be familiar with how the transportation is, how to get to the airport. So what we have to do is to send them maybe a written format of information on how to actually get to airport from the university or from anywhere they depart. So um, so IGE side, we have to provide all this information 2 weeks before they leave the country or 2 weeks before the project ends. So the question here is that, will you explain with the legal procedure on how to leave the country? So it's not necessary that we send them to the airport, but we have to make sure that we send all the information they need in order to leave the country. So that's all for logistics. And moving on, it's under job. So under job, there are 4 standards. The first one is job description. So for job description, as host entity, um, what we provide to them, meaning when they are in Malaysia, any job description, any job that they receive has to be correspond to the job description stated on opportunity portal or in the project booklets. So meaning we cannot provide job description that is different from what is stated or what is informed before, unless we properly communicate with them. Like for example, if there's a change in job description due to maybe external issues or due to external issues, we have to actually discuss with the EPs and make sure that they are informed and agree with the new JD or whatever arrangements. So the question here is, were you doing the job description you applied for? And if changes were made, were they communicated? So the key here is that um, sometimes it's very hard to actually offer the exactly same JD as mentioned in the opportunity portal. But the key here is that we have to actually communicate and discuss with EPs if there's any changes. So this is about job description. And up next, it's duration. So as you all know, Global Volunteer, it's all 6 weeks. So how do we fulfill duration? Is that all our projects are all 6 weeks. And we have to ensure that our EPs do join our projects and really commit for 6 weeks. And minimum 6 weeks, maximum 7 to 8 weeks. So the question here is, was the duration of your experience a minimum of 6 weeks? Yeah, so that's for duration. And moving on, working hour. So for working hour, how do we actually fulfill this is that we have to make sure EPs have at least 25 hours of working hours per week and not too much and not lesser than 25 hours. So the question here is, do you work at least 25 hours per week? So our role here is to really properly arrange their schedule, properly delegate all the tasks, and make sure that all of the tasks actually takes not lesser than 25 hours per week. Yeah, so that's for working hour. And moving on for first day of work. So for first day of work, how we usually fulfill is that during the first day of work of EPs, for example, for NCR, if we send them to during the first day of work, a representative from Isaac must be there, must be with the EP to actually assist them throughout the day because it's their first day, so they need a lot of assistance from EPs, from OCs. So same for PBOX. During their first day of work, OCs must be there with them to actually guide them. Yeah, because they're not familiar with the project yet, so it's our responsibility to actually guide them through. So the question here is, did an Isaac representative assist you on your first day of work? So that's for first day of work, and that's all for job. And moving on, it's under living is the last category of 16 standards. The first one is insurance. So this standard is fulfilled by home entity, which is OGV. And before EPs actually depart from their country, the OGV site has to ensure that EPs has a valid insurance to actually cover the basic medical costs throughout the 6 weeks. So this is the standard that we usually have the lowest fulfilled, meaning that we usually couldn't fulfill the standard. And a lot of times EPs do not find buying insurance necessary. So besides OGV working for it, like making sure that EPs do actually buy insurance, as IGV, we have to also ensure they have insurance before they arrive in Malaysia. So our role is to actually track both EPs and also OGV or the EPM. So the question here is that have you purchased insurance for the period of your stay? Yeah, so if they do buy, then it's a yes. And up next, it's accommodation. And for accommodation, similar to job description, the accommodation that we provide to the EPs has to correspond with whatever information that we provide to them before they arrive or upon approval. So meaning that if before they arrive, before realization, we tell them that the accommodation will have aircon, meaning that when they arrive in Malaysia, there must be aircon for them. So that's how we fulfill our promises. So if we do not have the confidence that we will be able to provide aircon, then we do not overpromise and tell them that we have aircon. So usually we will not give fake hopes. Like for example, if we have aircons, we will usually say we do not have aircons. So to actually prepare them for the worst situation. And the question here is that um, was the accommodation according to expectations set with you by Isaac? So it's all based on expectations set before arrival. So that's the crucial part whereby we have to set the right expectation. And lastly, basic living costs, it's also by host entity. So before they arrive or after approval, we have to make sure that we inform them about any compensation that we will provide. For example, if we cover them, we have to make sure that they know. And if we don't, we have to also make sure that they know, meaning that they won't expect any expenses that um, they won't expect if we do not cover any expenses, they won't expect from it, and if we cover, they will expect from it. Meaning, it's also expectation setting. So, um, for example, another example is that if we cover their utility bills, we'll let them know, and if we don't, we'll also let them know. So, meaning that they will roughly know what are the expenses or what are the costs that they will have to bear, as well as being informed of the basic living costs in Malaysia, for example, like a meal, roughly how much it is. So the question here is, were you informed about any compensation in terms of maybe subsidy on meals, and was it fulfilled? So that's for basic living costs. And so these are all the 16 standards. And mm, back to these slides. Okay, so 16 standards, it seems very simple. It seems a yes or no, meaning that if you provide, if you fulfill, then it's a yes. If you don't, then it's a no. So it's a very, yeah, it's a very straightforward thing. And sometimes there's a lot of arguments about 16 standards that if we really convert EPs from finished to complete, does it mean that we really do provide a complete experience or a quality experience to our EPs? That's a constant argument. And how confident are we to say that if we fulfill all 16 standards, it means we are developing leadership in them? So a lot of time it's not the problem with the system, but it's the implementation. And for example, for IPS, we can easily fulfill IPS by just conducting IPS for EPs. But what about the content? How about the objective? How quality of IPS? Do we really um, ensure we do provide a useful or quality IPS for EPs? And another example for working hours, does it mean that if we ensure EPs EPs work for at least 24 hours per week, it means these 25 hours is wisely spent on the project. And how do we actually ensure that they really spend their time wisely? So a lot of time is not about whether or not we fulfill it, but it's about how we fulfill it, how do we execute it. So hence, there's a new tool, which we call it value delivery tool. And for this tool, each of the EP will have one, meaning upon approval, once you approve the EP, you should actually create one tool for this EP. And this tool is actually utilized by both sending entity and hosting entity. For sending entity, it most probably will be EPM, and for hosting entity, will most probably be project OCs or even EP buddies. So this tool will be utilized starting from once you approve your EPs. And these are the components of the tools. Firstly, there's an overview, and there's a tab for expectation setting and SE and sending entity and posting entity alignment for before realization. And during realization, there's self-development plan and job, and also a 16 standards guideline as reference for EPs. So right now we'll go into the tool. Okay, so this is the value delivery tool, and each of the EP must have one. So this consists of their personal information for the overview tab. So I'll go into detail in tab by tab and what to actually fill, what you should actually fill up, and who should actually utilize it. Okay, firstly for overview, personal information. So the reason why a photo is encouraged to be inserted here is that some of the universities might need to create maybe an ID or a pass for EPs in order to actually get into the university. So if the EPs could actually attach their photo here, then it will be easier for you to actually apply for the pass. And this over here, it consists of all the information, all the personal information of EPs. And over here, it's the details and the information of hosting entity and sending entity. So for example, hosting entity, for example, I'm from UNMC, so UNMC, and project, for example, Clean Our Plate. And then SDG is 12. And then opportunity provider, it could be a school probably. And then the name of VP and then the contact number, and then the name of project director, EP body, and stuff. So this is for hosting entity. And moving on for sending entity, for example, let's say do NNC, and the name of VP or GV as well as EP manager. So this section here is actually for us to have all the information from sending entity and also for sending entity to have information of ours. So it helps in maybe communication. And if we have anything, we can actually refer to this to actually contact the OGV side or for them to contact us. And moving on, after personal information, it's EP checklist. So for EP checklist, it's whatever the EP has to do before, during, or after realization. So firstly, for before realization, which means when you approve them, after they get approval, what they have to do is maybe submit disclaimer form or terms and condition agreement. So this is actually this is encouraged because most of the times, even though we do expectation setting with EPs before realization, when they arrive in Malaysia, they will still complain about this and that. For example, if we already made if we already set expectation about accommodation, and they are still unsatisfied when they're here, they can always complain about this and that, and it will affect your project and as well as your team. So the purpose of having this is that it's the proof that we have already set expectation and they agree to it. So it's better to have a disclaimer form or agreement for them to sign beforehand. And also, EPs will have to fill up the EP tracker, which means this VD tool, whatever that is necessary. For example, all this information here, And over here is that once they fulfill it, they have to just tick. And up next is they have to fill up the airport pickup form. Like if you are using a Google form for them to fill up, like to know when are they arriving. So make sure that they actually fill it up. So it's stated here. So it's a checklist for them. And after that, it's to read all the documents provided in this tracker. So I'll show what are them later. So yeah, these are for EPs, and if there's any additional documents or add any additional items that you think is necessary, you can also add it in just by inserting another row. So it's up to your own LC. If you think it's necessary, you can just feel free to add in. So same goes to IGV. IGV checklist for us, before realization, you have to make sure that we do send invitation letter to EPs as well as supporting documents for visa application. And insert links to relevant documents in this tracker, meaning there's a tab, which is this tab. We have to actually insert all the information or links needed, and also to provide 16 standards education or webinar to EPs to make sure that they actually understand about 16 standards and also maybe about VD tool, about this tool. And similarly, if there's any additional items that you think is necessary, you can also add on. And then next is for OGV. So because this tool is also utilized by OGV, so they can also refer to this for what they have to actually fulfill before approval, before realization. So firstly is to fill out and sign agreement. So this is up to your LC, which you can also have an agreement for OGV that they agree to actually fulfill this standard and that standard and things like anything that you wish to have an agreement with the OGV side. So maybe just fill up and sign agreement if you think it's necessary. And ensures that EPS has insurance as one of the standard, and then delivers OPS, and then fill up this tracker. And lastly, set personal goal with EPs. So these are all actually based on 16 standards. And again, if you think there's any more necessary items, then just feel free to add it in. Yeah. And during realization, EPs will have to sign EPMOU and also pay a project fee. So this is the things that they have to do. For IGV, provide 16 standards education because this is mainly on dollar delivery and also 16 standards. So what we have to do is make sure that they're all well equipped with the knowledge of 16 standards to actually know what they deserve to receive. And yeah, so for OGV, you can also put down anything you want, which you think that OGV can help to contribute, and after discussing with them. Yeah, and then for after realization, to achieve complete, EPs have to actually fill up 16 standard survey as well as MPS survey on XPA. So our role here is to make sure that they really do fill up. And for IGV, we have to convert them from realize to complete. So yeah, track them, make sure that they do fill up the MPS and 16 standard survey. And for OGV, they have to conduct debrief. So that's the checklist for them from approve to complete. And lastly here, it's 16 standards. So these are the standards that have to be fulfilled before realization, and here during realization, and over here after realization. So the one in darker gray, it's fulfilled by OGV, and the rest is IGV. So the reason why we encourage to have 16 standards education virtually before realization is that we want to make sure that EPs are aware that these are the things that they should receive before realization. So listing it down here means that it serves as a reminder to them, and whenever they update or they tick on XPA, they have to just update it here. So it's encouraged. We encourage that EPs fill up their XPA or tick on XPA on all these standards before realization. So the reason is that we can, if it's before realization, we can still control, we can still, track and remind OGV site to actually fulfill these standards. Because most of the time when EPs arrive in Malaysia, only then we realize that they do not have insurance or they do not actually have attended OPS. So the reason is that if it's here, it's easier for us to track whether they receive these standards or not before realization. And moving on, during realization, these are things that IGV should fulfill, and OGV can also track. And after realization, it's debrief with exec home and departure support. So these two standards will only appear on XPA when they finish their experience. And for during, um, normally we would encourage LCs to make sure that EPs do fill up their 16 standards before they go back to their country, meaning that by the time they go back, 12 standards on 14 standards on XPA has to be fulfilled, meaning that we must see 14 ticks on XPA. So if provided that you do really fulfill it. So the reason here is that we make sure EPs know how to fill up and really fill up, because often when EPs go back to their country, it's very hard for us to actually remind them or track them because we do not see them anymore. So it's very hard to make sure that they really fill up. So it's best that they fill up before they go back to their country. Besides these two standards here, they debrief with Isaac home and departure support. Yeah, so this is for overview. This is the entire content of the first tab. And after overview, the next step is expectation setting checklist. So this, the list here are all the documents that IGV and OGV have to actually upload attach here. You can just insert the link here. So for example, for expectation setting, how do we actually fulfill this through all these documents? We have to make sure that we provide all this information to them through all these documents. So for example, a project booklet, we ensure that they really understand about our project and know what to expect from us. And same goes to all other documents. And then visa and work permit, these are the things that they should actually receive. So the same thing goes, which you can also feel free to add anything that you feel is necessary, or any documents that only your LC maybe only your LC have, you can also add in. So the reason of having this tab is to actually allow EPs to easily access to any information that they need. Because normally we send information on documents through email, and it's not all in one email. It's when we engage them, it's this few documents. And after we accept them, it's this few documents. And after we approve them, it's another few documents. So it's very messy, it's like everywhere. So the best way is that we list everything down here and they can easily access if they need any information. And especially for insurance, to actually really know or really ensure that EPs really have their insurance, they can OGV site should actually attach or EPs should actually attach the proof of they having the insurance here. So it's also for us to track. And that's all for expectation setting. And this is only for logistic and living. So mostly are all they are mostly standards under logistics and living. And the next one will be the alignment between sending entity and hosting entity, and it's more towards development. So if you're aware, one of the standard is outgoing preparation and another one is incoming preparation. So how do we actually ensure, how do we actually provide a quality OPS and IPS is that we have to always sync with OGV side, liaise with them to actually know what do they offer or what are the content of their OPS so that we can know how to align or plan our IPS. So for example, 16 standards. So in OPS, they will have a session on 16 standards. And the objective is to ensure that EPs understand all the services that they deserve to receive, either from sending entity or hosting entity. So for us, we will also have our 16 standards, our sessions about 16 standards in IPS. And the objective here is more towards ensuring EPs understand how each standard is fulfilled by us. So we will explain like how do we fulfill the first standard, the second standard, and this is how we align them. Because after knowing that OPS, they have sessions about 60 standards, we know how to continue and provide the right information to them. So similarly, there can be a lot of sessions and we can actually align with each other. So the expected outcome of why do we need to align is that EPs are well aware about the services they should receive from both sending entity and hosting entity and know how to actually fill out the survey and XPA. So this is the expected outcome. So another column here could be feedbacks from EPs, whereby after they attend the session from both OPS and IPS, whether or not they really understand the session or any feedbacks from them. So this is on OPS and IPS. So here's the objective of the session overall. And there'll be another row to insert the link for OPS and IPS, as in the Google Slides or the slides that they use. So we can track even more easily. Yep, so this is filled by home entity and this is by host entity for IPS. So that's preparation seminar. And up next is expectation setting, but in terms of development. So earlier it's on logistics and living, and right now it's on development. So for expectation setting here, it's for us to know expectations from home entity. So here it's from home entity to host entity and EPs. So home entity will have expectations towards host entity, which is us. So maybe OGV will expect certain things that IGV will have to meet or will have to fulfill. Like for example, in terms of communication, maybe how many meetings should we have, things like that. And also for from host entity to home entity, which means from IGV to OGV, what do we expect from them? It can be all listed down here. And also from EPs to both home entity and host entities. So in terms of facilitating the EP's experience. So no matter what is listed down here, it has to be back to EP's experience and EP's development. So what should home entity and host entity do, or even what should EPs do to ensure that EP's experience is complete or is a quality one? Yeah, this is expectation setting. And debrief with Isaac home. So it's only done or not done. So for us to really know what they have done for a debrief, here's what OGV site can actually fill up the summary of how is it done. Like, for example, if they just meet the EP to actually talk about or just have a sharing session, they can actually fill up or just type it down here, like how is it done? So the IGV is aware of how is it and yeah, they know how is it fulfilled. So this is alignment. So alignment between sending entity and hosting entity. So if you're aware, for all these tabs, like for example, the first one, expectation setting, and also the next one, they are all actually contributing to each of the to either one of the standard. So for example, these are all expectation setting. So if you actually utilize this tool properly, it's actually helping you to fulfill the standards and to make sure you don't miss out anything. So far we have done with the first two tabs on standards, and after that is on job. So this tab is mainly on job, and for the first one here about job description. So what has to be filled here is that what are the job description based on project booklet or based on opportunity portal, meaning that when EPs apply for the project, what are the JD that they know, like based on expectation? What are the JD that they are informed with? So this is all you can actually copy paste from opportunity portal or from project booklet. So week by week, the reason is that okay, probably you will say that okay, EPs will have workshops. So workshops, when is it? So you can just fill out maybe it's in week 2 or it's during week 3. So all the job description week by week, and it's based on what you have promised the EPs. So this is job description. And next, flexible job description. So why flexible here is that because we all understand that sometimes things might not be how we like might not be how we actually plan to be. So for example, we say that we will have workshop for EPs, but eventually maybe the school cancel the workshop. So meaning that there's a change in JD So you will have to plan a new JD and you have to discuss with EPs as well. So what are the newly assigned or modified job description agreed by both OCs and EPs? So this section here is for OCs, is to remind OCs to actually talk to the EPs when there's new changes on JD, and to make sure that you actually jot it down here so that you don't miss out anything and EPs are all well aware about it. So they cannot say that it's not communicated when it's all here. And if they have anything or any problem, they should actually voice up. So the difference between the first section here and second here is that the first one is solely based on what you have promised them. And the second one is during realization, if there's any changes, you can actually list it down here. So these are job descriptions. And moving on for tasks. So the difference between task and job description is that job description could be a very general one. For example, conducting workshop. So a task is what are the things that you should do in order to maybe eventually conduct a workshop. So for example, conducting a workshop, the task could be doing research on certain topics and then preparing script, dry run, preparing slides. These are all the tasks. It's all the breakdown of the job description. So the task is here, and what OCs or EPs themselves will have to fill up is that they will have to fill up the task every week, so that they they know what have they done for the entire week and what are they going to do. So it's like a plan for them. So for example, prepare script for workshop. This is their task. And objective here, why do we need another box here for objective is that we want to align their job description to the personal goal that they have set. So OCs will have to be aware about this as well. OCs will have to make sure that the task assigned to them is actually something that is contributing to the personal goal set, or something that is helping them to improve on certain things. So for example, prepare script for workshop. The objective here is to help the EP to improve in public speaking, because maybe the EPs wants to learn how to speak in front of everyone. So this is how we align the task or the JD with their personal goal, or with how they want to improve their maybe weaknesses. So this is how we align. And status is done or not done. And working hours, for example, it takes EPs take 3 hours to actually complete this task. So whenever there's a task, EPs will have to figure out like roughly how long they use to actually finish the task, and hence we'll get to know like how many hours do they actually work in 1 week. So we get to adjust if it's a lot more than 25 hours, and we get to also maybe add new tasks if it's lesser than 25 hours. It's also helping OCs to plan. So same thing from week 1 to week 6. And after that, um, it's more on a bit of reflection. Like in week 1, after completing all these tasks, what are the challenges that the EPs actually face to complete the task? Yep. So what were the challenges faced while accomplishing each task, and way forward or solution? So what are the way forward or solutions that EPs have taken to actually maybe solve or overcome the challenge? And what are the learnings after that? For example, if the task is prepare script for workshop, maybe EPs face challenge on maybe the English, they do not know how to write a proper script. And what's the solution or way forward? Probably they work together with other EPs to get help from them to actually overcome the challenge. And the learnings could be the EPs realize that it's important to work together with other EPs. So this could be the outcome of their reflection. And after that, feedback to EPs is actually filled up by OCs. Like for week 1, what are the feedbacks or anything that the EPs should actually take note to the after working for 1 week. So it's a general feedback to EPs from OCs. It could be compliment as well, and also feedbacks to OCs from EPs, like anything that OCs should improve or any compliments. Yeah. So same thing from week 1 to week 6. So up here it's job description, and then breakdown to all the tasks, and also reflection of after they have accomplished all the tasks, and or if they do not accomplish the task. And feedbacks. And lastly is first day of work. So this is for OCs. It's to remind OCs to actually fulfill their standard. So for first day of work, probably can be the date here, and then where is it, and the OC in charge, so that EPs know who should they actually approach. Yeah. So this is all about job and a bit of reflection. So this tab is important for OCs as well as the next tab. So this is all for this one is about self-development. So it's called self-development plan. So what OCs, how OCs should actually utilize this is, firstly, we'll have to collect the initial LDA of from EPs and fill it up here, and get the inference for each of the score. And this could be something that EPs or OCs could actually plan for them. So for example, for self-aware, let's say the EP has a score of maybe 36, and how to actually improve on that, EPs and OCs could actually plan a challenge for them. For example, the challenge could be, okay, EPs will have to approach three of his or her friends to ask about the strengths and weaknesses. So this is the challenge from the EP of the EP. Is done or not, it's here. And so it goes, it's the same for all the remaining leadership qualities. And you can have different challenge for each of the week. So this is something to actually help the EPs to improve on leadership qualities based on the LDA score. And up here it's all about LDA. And another one, moving on, it's about personal goal setting. So as mentioned, home entity will have to set personal goals or with EPs, or the sending entity, which means the OGD side, will have to set personal goals together with the EPs. So they could actually fill up their personal goal here according to the SMART goal. So this section here is under home entity, which means home entity is responsible to fill up. And over here, it's host entity. It's the weekly progress whereby host entity will have to track. So for example, the first goal here, and for week one, what is the goal for the first goal? This is actually the KPI. So for example, for example, the goal here is to actually be more outspoken. So the KPI here could be talking to maybe 5 people. So that's a goal for week one, and the actual is actually recorded here. So this is something that has to be tracked by host entity to make sure that EPs are slowly progressing week by week in order to achieve the goal that they set before they actually leave their country and come to Malaysia. So this part is only for personal goal setting, has to be responsible by both home and host entity. Yep. And competence, it's actually for EPs to know what are things that they should equip themselves. Like for example, what are the knowledge or skills needed to actually achieve his or her goal. So that they can actually work on it. And how here is that how to actually gain the skill or the knowledge. So this is something to help them to achieve the goal here. And moving on, it's understanding myself. So this section here is for EPs to actually understand themselves more. For example, on personal values, to actually reflect on what are their personal values and to be aware of what are their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So yeah, this part is when weeks goes on, after they really reflect on themselves, they will be able to actually fill up this. Yeah, and the last part here is reflection after lead session. So we will have lead session. We will encourage LCs to maybe have lead session on a weekly basis, maybe on Friday. Yeah, and after every lead session on a certain leadership quality, we could actually have a reflection to actually allow EPs to reflect on the entire week, on maybe what have they learned, any realizations, and they can actually jot it down here. So it's from week 1 until week 6. And you can have guiding questions here. It's up to your LC to plan. Yeah. So this is all based This is all for development purpose. So this tab and this tab about job has to align, as in when OCs plan for a job, they have to actually refer to the self-development plan of EPs to know to be aware of what are their personal goals and to be aware of what are their strengths and weaknesses, such that it helps OCs to actually assign tasks over here. So yeah, these are all the 4 tabs that actually guides OCs to fulfill each of the standards. Yeah, and that's almost all. And the last step here is 16 standards guideline. It's for EPs to refer on what should they receive and how do each LC actually fulfill. Yeah, so this is actually the national 16 standards guideline. So if there's any maybe different way of how you fulfill the standard, you can actually edit it so that EPs are all aware. So yeah, this is basically the VD tool, and it's a very new tool. So make sure that all of you are well aware of how to use it, and also to others who are not here, make sure that they are aware, because this is a very helpful tool for especially for EP buddies as well as for project OCs to actually do experience mapping. So experience mapping means you plan their 6 weeks according to what they really need. Like for example, if they are weak on certain things, what should you do to actually strengthen that part? Things like that. So this is experience mapping. So that's all about VD tool. And yeah, so to sum up, why do we need 16 standards, and why why do we have to do so much on value delivery? Is that first thing, not just friendship, because if you have been in Isaac for quite long, if you have been in Isaac for a certain time, and if you have undergone realization, if you have interacted with EPs, most of the times when EPs go back to their home country, they will usually feel satisfied and happy, but it's not because of um, the leadership experience here, and it's not because of the self discovery journey. Sometimes it is, but sometimes, a lot of time, it's not really. They are just happy because of the friendship they have made here. They are just happy because of the memories they made here, but not really so much on the leadership experience that they have maybe experienced. So the point here is that for our product, the essence is still developing leadership. Although they are here for like to really understand each other's culture, to have a better and understanding about each other, and to make more friends. But we cannot actually neglect the fact that we are actually developing leadership in them as well. So in the end, we do not just want to create memories and to have new friendships, but what we really want is leadership. So we want to develop leadership in them. So that's why we need 16 standards. We need the tool to actually help us. 16 standards is the guideline, it's a checklist for us. And the tool, the VD tool here, it's for us to it's helping us on how to actually fulfill it. So it's the implementation. So this is the first one. And the second one, a lot of us will have conversation about quality or quantity. So how do we, at the same time have so many EPs, and how do we ensure that the project quality is there? How do we ensure that we provide a quality experience to our EPs? So, but the key here is that we are not actually debating on which one is more important, but we want both quality and quantity. That's why when during attraction peak, we are focusing on how to get more applicants, how to convert them into approvals, how to get more approvals, and how to get them realized. After that, we have to also make sure that their quality is there. We have to make sure that the project quality is there. We have to make sure that the project is able to provide impactful leadership experience to the EPs. Because again, the essence of the product is leadership experience, leadership. It's to develop leadership. And lastly, it's fulfilling promises. And For this, you might not know how much an EP would sacrifice to actually come for global volunteer. Some EP would have to spend a lot of time to actually convince their parents to allow them to come for global volunteer. And some of the EPs will have to maybe save a lot of money, have to spend maybe years saving up to actually to be able to afford the cost to come for global volunteer. And some of the EPs will have to maybe sacrifice their time for classes to or to skip classes to actually come for global volunteer. So we do not actually know the stories behind the EPs. We do not know how much effort they have put to actually come for global volunteer. And if they come here and go back with disappointment, um, it's not a very good thing. I mean, it's not how we should actually deliver deliver our services. So why fulfilling promises is that we have to always be mindful of what we promise them. We have to be accountable to it. Once promised, we have to fulfill. So when we click approve on XPA, it means that we promise to provide 16 standards. So 16 standards is important. So VD2 is here to help you to actually implement it. Yeah. So yeah, that's all for the value delivery education space. And if you have any questions, you can actually ask. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can just type your questions so that I can answer. Okay. Um, okay, so to answer this question, is there a maximum working hours to be fulfilled? Um, there isn't a maximum working hours. It's minimum. We have to make sure that they have 25 hours of working hours per week. That's the minimum. We can go more than 25. Yeah, we can go more than 25 hours, but yeah, we can go more than 25 hours, but not too extreme. Like based on rational thinking, like you should actually be aware of what is the optimum working hour. You can also get feedbacks from EPs on how do they feel like. Maybe okay, for example, on week one, during week one, there's 30 hours, and you can collect feedbacks from EPs. How do they feel about it? Is 30 hours okay? If not, why? And try to sort it out. There isn't a maximum working hour that you should actually reach, but at least 25 hours, meaning that you cannot go lesser than 25 hours, but you can go more. But you have to really balance it up. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay, for how to let EPs to have a lead space with OCs personally or O2O if the EPs refuses to do it. Okay, so a lot of different people will have different preference. Like for me, I wouldn't say I like to do O2O as well. So as long as no matter what method you use, as long as you achieve the intention behind, it's fine. For example, if the reason why you want to have O2O is just to maybe understand the EP more, to hear what are the EP's stories or whatnot, you can actually use maybe other methods to achieve that intention. So for example, I want to know about the strengths of these EPs. If the EP do not prefer to actually have O2O, meaning that maybe the EP is not comfortable with you yet. So you can try slow. If you still want to do O2O, you can go slow. You can start with maybe a small talk or just go and have a meal together and slowly go into the topic. But it still depends on the preference of EPs. You can actually be creative on how to actually achieve it as long as the intention that you want is there, as long as you still achieve the intention that you want. Or if the EP, for example, if the EP is more comfortable in maybe a learning circle, you can actually provide that kind of environment as well. So it depends on the EPs and really, really talk to them and understand what do they actually want. And also be aware of what the OCs actually want to know and the intention of OCs. So yeah, does that answer your question? Okay, for this question, if EP did not attend the workshop or classes and did not fulfill the working hours, do they click yes or no in the 16 standard form? So a lot of times we would argue that if we have already offer or we have already provide or fulfilled the 16 standards, but EPs are the one who do not actually want to accept the offer or do not actually follow what we actually want to do, normally we would also say that we have already fulfilled and it's a tick over there. But um, thinking from another perspective, 16 standards is to measure whether we provide a complete experience to them or not. So if you think that we have already offered, but they do not receive, they do not accept it, do you think that they have received a complete experience from us? Although we do offer, but they did not accept it, it's still not considered complete. But we actually have the authority or the right to actually ask them to tick yes because we do actually offer it. But if you're aware about this issue, OCs will have to work towards that. We'll have to work on that to ensure that EPs are actually cooperative. But on EXPA, if we already fulfill it, it can be a yes. But it doesn't mean that EPs receive complete experience. Same goes to other standards as well. Like for example, if we offer IPS but they do not attend, so it means that we have done our part, but doesn't mean that EPs have a complete experience. Yeah. Okay. If EPM requested that EPs shouldn't work more than 35 hours, and EPs also refuse to work overtime. So for this, before realization, if you think that your working hours will go more than 25 hours or will be much more than 25 hours, it's better that you really set expectation with the EPs to make sure that EPs are aware about these long working hours, because EPs have the right to actually know how long should they work and to know the project daily schedule, to know how much time they have to spend for the project. And if it's more than 35 hours, if you think that it's reasonable, I mean, if it's 35 hours, you need to provide reasonable reasons to EPs and EPM. And if they refuse to work overtime after you actually set expectation, then you probably have to really talk to your EP, because before before realization, you have already set the expectation that working hours will be more than that. So, um, so if that's the case, it's back to expectation setting. So if you already set, that's why I encourage you all to actually sign or have prepared the disclaimer form or terms and conditions so that they really sign before realization. So they agree to all the expectations set. So if after you set expectation, they cannot actually complain that much. If they really do, then you really have to spend time to talk to them. And if in reality you do not set expectation that the working hours will go that extreme, then you probably have to revise or review whatever you have planned, because depending on whether that 35 hours is it reasonable or not. Is it full 35 hours without break, or it's very, very heavy workload? So it depends on how you define that 35 hours. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. And how should we prompt EPs to fill in VD2? Okay, for that, before realization, can actually assign EP buddies for all the EPs. And EP buddy here means that this person is a friend of the EP. So EP buddy will have to make sure that the EPs fill up, because EP buddies, you can have maybe one EP buddy to 2 or 3 EPs. So you are actually tracking maybe 2 or 3%. So it's not that hard. So firstly, your EP buddy will have to build a relationship with EPs to actually make friends with them. And then slowly you have to slowly gain trust, and then really explain what's the purpose of the VD tool, because eventually the VD tool is actually um, important and useful for the EPs themselves. If they really do value their development, they should really fill it up. So firstly, it's really explain it to them, make sure that they really understand the purpose of it. And if they come with the right mindset and expectation, they will fill it up. And another way is that to really to talk with the OGV side, um, make sure that OGV is aware about this tool, and make sure that they guide the EPs to fill it up. So that's what I can thought of so far, which is firstly through EP Buddy and secondly through OGV. Yeah. So yeah, that's the answer. Any more questions? So add on to the working hours. Add on the working hours, EPMs, the EPM is right that EPs shouldn't work more than 35 hours. Yeah, so meaning that the minimum is 25 hours, maximum is 35 hours. If what you meant is the maximum that they can go is 35 hours, then yes, it's 35 hours. But you really have to be aware of what is the task given in that 35 hours. Like if it's a simple task, then you should actually adjust it. So working hours is 25 to 35. Yep. So any more questions? Okay, so if any of you have any more questions, feel free to contact me. Okay, this is my name, this is my email, and then this is my contact number. You can just contact me if you have any questions to ask, or if you have any better suggestions, because um, like for example, VD tool is a very new tool, and even for its implementation and stuff, me myself, I'm not that sure like how to ensure everyone is utilizing it. So if you have better suggestions or better suggestions on content to actually include in the VD tool, you can also approach me and let me know. Yep. So this is my contact number and my email. Yeah. So I assume there's no more questions, and yeah, thank you. Thank you for attending. So I overran for 16 minutes. Sorry for that, but yeah, thank you. I will, yeah, we will send the slides to all of you, so no worries. Okay, so I think that's all. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Have a good rest. Bye.